Donald J. Trump has done what no modern president has returned to the White House with a vengeance after a historic 2024 landslide. He's back to finish what he started, crushing the radical left's agenda, rebuilding America's strength, and redefining the future of U.S. politics. This is Trump 2.0 in this video. We dive deep into how Trump's second term could reshape America and the world from foreign policy to economic revival and beyond following a landslide election victory in 2024. President Donald J. Trump is returning to the White House to expand on his past victories and use his mandate to reject the radical left's extremist plans while bringing tangible quality of life improvements for Americans. This includes putting an end to endless wars, defending our country's borders, and unleashing the power of the American economy, allowing all Americans to pursue their version of the American dream. In his first administration, President Trump passed record-setting tax cuts and regulation cuts, achieved energy independence, replaced NAFTA with the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, invested $2 trillion to completely rebuild the military, launched the Space Force, obliterated the ISIS caliphate, achieved a major breakthrough for peace in the Middle East, passed the most significant Veterans Affairs reforms in half a century, confirmed over 250 federal judges. It was merely the beginning. Donald J. Trump represents the American success story. Throughout his life, he has consistently set the benchmark for commercial and entrepreneurial achievement, particularly in real estate, sports, and entertainment. President Trump expanded on his private success when he entered politics and public service. Stay informed with the latest on Trump and U.S. politics. Hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments below. He won the presidency in his first electoral campaign. He won a second time despite many murder attempts and tremendous law enforcement weaponization against him. President Trump has repeatedly beaten the odds because he believes in the exceptionality of the American spirit and wants our country to flourish. President Trump, a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Finance, followed in his father's footsteps into real estate development, establishing himself in New York City. There, the Trump name quickly became synonymous with the most prominent residences in Manhattan and eventually around the world. President Donald Trump is also an outstanding author. He has published more than 14 bestsellers. His first book, The Art of the Deal, is regarded as a business classic. President Trump has 5 children: Barron, Don Jr., Ivanka, Eric, and Tiffany, as well as 11 grandchildren. Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States on January 20th, 2025. At that point, he will be the first U.S. president since Grover Cleveland 130 years ago to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, having lost the White House and regaining it 4 years later. With 4 more years in office, Trump now has the ability to become not only a contentious character, but also a historically significant president. H.W. Brands, an academic historian, contends that there have only been 3 great U.S. presidents: George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. FDR, a position with which scholarly opinion polls generally concur. All 3 presidents faced epochal concerns and catastrophes. Washington needed to win the fight of independence and ensure that the United States was established and on solid ground at home and abroad. Lincoln needed to win the Civil War and solve the nation's foundational sin of slavery. Following the Great Depression, FDR had to save the capitalist economy and combat fascism in World War II. As a result, most presidents strive to rank in the second tier of popular and scholarly memory. These are presidents who altered the course of the country by influencing political discourse and public policy. To do this, a president must win 2 terms in office. Previous presidents, such as Ronald Reagan and Barack Obama, can undoubtedly claim to be considered significant political leaders in these terms. Reagan defied decades of economic and political consensus by asserting in his inaugural speech that government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. Reaganism's programs may have had an impact, but it was his rhetoric that set the U.S. political agenda for over 4 decades. Obama's signature domestic reform, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, is once again under threat of Republican repeal, and this time his old nemesis John McCain is not there to preserve it. Obama's promise and belief in the optimism of American development were most likely his true legacy. But they may have simply concealed the divisiveness and conflicts beneath the surface. Trump 2.0. The reaction to Trump's political comeback is as polarizing as the man himself. His supporters appreciate a political realignment in which the Republican Party now represents blue-collar Americans in contrast to the Democratic Party's elitism. Trump's opponents claim that if he follows through on his tariff threat, the U.S. would align with authoritarians and plunge the country and the world into economic disaster, and the thought of a convicted felon limiting employment possibilities for his fellow Americans may be called into question following his reelection to the highest political office, not to mention questions about the future of American democracy. But there's no denying that Trump, having won a second term, will have completely dominated U.S. politics for a decade or more, is a consequential president. He transformed the Republican Party into the party of Trumpism, and by appointing J.D. Vance as vice president, he may have settled the matter of leaving a legacy for the MAGA movement that can be passed down to future generations. On the international stage and as a political disruptor, Trump will cause uncertainty for governments across Europe and Asia. Some feel that this is an effective foreign policy approach. His admirers emphasize the fact that there were no significant wars during his first administration, unlike the ones that now threaten the world. To be fair, his inconsistency and the uncertainty that comes with it could be interpreted as the embodiment of the madman theory, which claims that an unpredictable leader is a useful deterrent in the era of nuclear weapons. However, this will provide little comfort to Ukraine, which may no longer be able to rely on U.S. help or the NATO alliance. For similar reasons, speculation about the 2028 presidential contest will be widespread. From the halls of power to social media platforms, it is here that we will see the true impact of Trump's election. The Republicans will look for the candidate best suited to maintaining Trump's support. Indeed, broad coalition now appears to be an appropriate description of the MAGA movement. Democrats can no longer claim extraordinarily narrow Republican victory in battleground states, as they did in 2016. Indeed, they can no longer argue that Trump was not chosen by the majority of American voters. After losing the popular vote to Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020, he won the popular vote in 2024 by over 5 million votes over Kamala Harris. Trump bolstered Republican support in safe blue states like New York. He has received support across various groups, including Hispanics and African Americans. The task now is for Democrats to change. They must once again master the language and address the issues that are most important to the American heartlands. Bill Clinton and his New Democrats were the result of the Reagan Revolution, and he even declared that the era of big government was over as he prepared for his own re-election in 1996. Obama was a generational political genius in coalition building, however bookended by Republican presidents who were able to reach out beyond their conventional base. Notably among minority voters, Trump has transformed the game in American politics. He may be a polarizing figure who is both sparked and exploited the emotions of a deeply divided country. However, it is hard to argue that, in the grand scheme of U.S. political history, the man who became America's 45th and 47th president will not be recognized as a figure of significant influence.